Some vocabulary words that we will be reading in Los Higos, chapter 4, smoldering. We've talked about this word before in some of our previous texts. So that means it's burning slowly with no flames. So we talked about it especially with when we're talking about the volcano and the true princess of Hawaii. Surveyed means to look over. Phoenix, it's a mythological bird, not a real bird, it's a myth. It's a way of saying that they will rise from the ashes because the story goes that the phoenix will burn, but it always comes back. Correspondence means when somebody is communicating by mail, by letter. A valise, they spell it a little different in the text in our story, but it means valise and it's a suitcase. Resentful, we'll find this word at the end of the chapter, and it means that they have anger at being treated unfairly. Los Higos, figs, chapter 4. The wind blew hard that night, and the house moaned and whistled. Instead of dreaming of birthday songs, Esperanza's sleep was filled with nightmares. An enormous bear was chasing her, getting closer and closer, and finally folding her in a tight embrace. Its fur caught in her mouth, making it hard to breathe. Someone tried to pull the bear away, but couldn't. The bear squeezed harder until it was smothering Esperanza. Then, when she thought she would suffocate, the bear grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her until her head wagged back and forth. Her eyes opened, then closed again. She realized she was dreaming, and for an instant she felt relieved. But the shaking began again, harder this time. Someone was calling her, Esperanza! She opened her eyes. Esperanza, wake up! Screamed Mama. The house is on fire! Smoke drifted into the room. Mama, what's happening? Get up, Esperanza. We must get Abuelita. Esperanza heard Alfonso's deep voice yelling from somewhere downstairs. Señora Ortega! Esperanza! Here, we are here, called Mama, grabbing a damp rag from the wash bowl and handing it to Esperanza to put over her mouth and nose. Esperanza swung around in a circle looking for something, anything to save. She grabbed the doll. What doll?
The birthday doll.
Then she and Mama hurried down the hall toward Abuelita's room, but it was empty. Alfonso! Screamed Mama. Abuelita's not here. We will find her. You must come now. The stairs are beginning to burn. Hurry! Esperanza held the towel over her face and looked down the stairs. Curtains flamed up the walls. The house was enveloped in a fog that thickened toward the ceiling. Mama and Esperanza crouched down the stairs where Alfonso was waiting to lead them out through the kitchen. In the courtyard, the wooden gates were open. Near the stables, the vaqueros were releasing the horses from the corrals. Servants scurried everywhere. Where were they going? Where's Abuelita? Abuelita! Cried Mama. Esperanza felt dizzy. Nothing seemed real. Was she still dreaming? Was this her own imagination gone wild? Miguel grabbed her. Where's your mother and Abuelita? Esperanza whimpered and looked toward Mama. He left her, stopped at Mama, then ran toward the house. The wind caught the sparks from the house and carried them to the stables. Esperanza stood in the middle of it all, watching the outline of her home silhouetted in flames against the night sky. Someone wrapped a blanket around her. Was she cold? She did not know. Miguel ran out of the burning house carrying Abuelita in his arms. He laid her down and Hortensia screamed. The back of his shirt was on fire. Alfonso tackled him, rolling him over and over on the ground until the fire was out. Miguel stood up and slowly took off the blackened shirt. He wasn't badly burned. Mama cradled Abuelita in her hands. Mama, said Esperanza, is she? No, she is alive, but weak, and her ankle. I don't think she can walk, said Mama. Esperanza knelt down. Abuelita, where were you? Her grandmother held up the cloth bag with her crocheting, and after some minutes of coughing, whispered, "We must have something to do while we wait." The fire's anger could not be contained. It spread to the grapes. The flames ran along the deliberate rows of the vines, like long curved fingers reaching for the horizon, lighting the night sky. So here's an example of figurative language where they're giving the fire a sense of being a person. They're using personification. So when they're using personification, they're giving a sense of human. So they're talking about that fire is being angry. Can a fire really be angry? No, right? Can a fire really have fingers crawling and touching everything? No, but they're using this kind of language to help you imagine how the fire is not like a soft, pretty fire, but it's like a mean, angry fire.
It's like a wildfire.
Like a wildfire, just getting everything in the way. Esperanza stood as if in a trance and watched El Rancho de las Rosas burn. Mamá, Abuelita, and Esperanza slept in the servants' cabins. They really didn't sleep much, but they didn't cry either. They were numb, as if encased in a thick skin that nothing could penetrate. And there was no point in talking about how it happened. They all knew that the uncles had arranged the fire. At dawn, still in her nightgown, Esperanza went out among the rubble, avoiding the smoldering piles. She picked through the black wood, hoping to find something to salvage. Remember, we talked about the word smoldering before.
Yeah, like in Jumanji where he smolders.
Yeah, but that's the look he gives. But smoldering is when the things are still burning, but there's no flame. So things are still hot and smoky.
They knew that the uncles arranged the fire when they planned it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like they knew that it was going to turn into like a massive fire and burn everything. So he could maybe like make her have no choice to marry him.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna see what that happens. So she sat on an adobe block near what used to be the front door and looked over at Papa's rose garden. Flowerless stems were covered in soot. Days, ash.
Oh.
Like what's left over from the fire after everything burns.
Oh.
Dazed and hugging herself, Esperanza surveyed the surviving victims. The twisted forms of wrought iron chairs, unharmed cast iron skillets, and the mortars and pestles from the kitchen that were made from lava rock and refused to burn. Then she saw the remains of the trunk that used to sit at the front of her bed, the metal straps still intact. She stood up and hurried toward it, hoping for un milagro, a miracle. She looked closely, but all that remained were black cinders.
Wait, what is cinders?
Means like the pieces of wood just like black and burned.
You can't sit on them because they'll just break.
Yes. There was nothing left inside for someday. Remember her mama had made her all of these cute things every year for her birthday for when she grew up and she could use them someday. So all of those things were gone. There was nothing left inside for someday. Esperanza saw her uncles approaching on horseback and ran to tell the others. Mama waited on the steps of the cabin with her arms crossed, looking like a fierce statue. Alfonso, Hortensia, and Miguel stood nearby. Mm-hmm.
They're all mad.
Ramona, said Tio Marco, remaining on his horse. Another sadness in so short a time. We are deeply sorry.
Yeah, you're being sarcastic.
Mm-hmm. I have come to give you another chance, said Tio Luis. If you reconsider my proposal, I will build a bigger, more beautiful house and I will replant everything. Of course, if you prefer, you can live here with the servants as long as another tragedy does not happen to their homes as well. There is no main house or field where they can work. So, you see, that many people's lives and jobs depend upon you. And I am sure you want the best for Esperanza. Do you not? Mamma did not speak for several moments. She looked around at the servants who had gathered. Now her face did not seem so fierce, and her eyes.
And he's like, and she's like, he has a point.
So that's what she's saying. So she looked around at the servants who had gathered. Now her face did not seem so fierce, and her eyes were damp. Esperanza wondered where the servants would go when Mamma told Tio Luis no. Mamma looked at Esperanza with eyes that said, "Forgive me." Then she dropped her head and stared at the ground. "I will consider your proposal," said Mamma. Tio Luis smiled. "I am delighted. I have no doubt that you will make the right decision. I will be back in a few days for your answer." "Mamma, no," said Esperanza. She turned to Tio Luis and said, "I hate you." Tio Luis ignored her. "And Ramona, if Esperanza is to be my daughter, she must have better manners. In fact, today I will look into boarding schools where they can teach her to act like a lady." Then he turned his horse, dug his spurs into the animal, and rode away. Esperanza began to weep. She grabbed Mamma's arm and said, "Why? Why did you tell him that?" But Mamma was not listening to her. She was looking up as if consulting the angels. Finally, she said, "Alfonso, Hortensia, we must talk with Abuelita. Esperanza and Miguel, come inside. You are old enough to hear the discussions." "But Mamma," and Mamma took Esperanza by the shoulders and faced her. "Mija, my daughter, do not worry. I know what I am doing." They all crowded into Hortensia and Alfonso's tiny bedroom where Abuelita was resting, her swollen ankle propped on pillows. Esperanza sat on Abuelita's bed while Mamma and the others stood. "Alfonso, what are my options?" said Mamma. "If you don't intend to marry him, Señora, you cannot stay here. He would burn down the servants' quarters next. There will be no income because there are no grapes. You would have to depend on the charity of others, and they would be afraid to help you. You could move to some other part of Mexico, but in poverty. Luis's influence is far-reaching." The room was quiet. Mamma looked out the window and tapped her fingers on the wooden sill. So Hortensia went to Mamma's side and touched her arm. "You should know that we have decided to go to the United States. Alfonso's brother has been writing to us about the big farm in California where he works now. He can arrange jobs and a cabin for us too. We are sending the letter tomorrow." Mamma turned and looked at Abuelita. With no word spoken, Abuelita nodded. "What if Esperanza and I went with you? To the United States," said Mamma.